All right, so we made it on top of our roof safely. No broken bones, we're all good. So Dan's gonna walk around the roof, talk to us a little bit about what he sees, what he would recommend, and some things that you should be looking out for when you are planning your solar panels on top of your roof, okay? All right, so Dan, take it away.
Okay, so the first thing, Barry, is a typical RV size panel is 27 inches by 59 inches. And I'm gonna walk up here by your AC to show the audience kind of what that means in this area. So if I put the tape measure out, without going over the edge here, I've got about 33 inches. So in this case, I would probably do, like I said, it's 27 inches. I would tend to go towards the outside, and that would leave you just about 6 inches to scoot through there between the panel. You've got a nice long open roof space, and you could be put, you know, end to end, you could put several panels on each side of the roof without really anything getting in the way. You do have a wine guard antenna up here, pretty typical on some RVs. If someone isn't using it, they could remove it, but it's also, you've got room to go around it. Let's talk about shadowing. It's April in Utah, and it's later in the evening, and you can see already that even this low AC is throwing a pretty good shadow across your roof, and so this would shade a panel in this area. You know, being here, you have a little even taller one behind us. So something to be aware of. If you can avoid object shading, then that's definitely the more advantaged way to go. But if you can't avoid it, or you're loading your roof up, just know that, you know, late in the evening, early in the morning, you may have some shade. In the summertime, it's not as big of a deal. So one of the things we talked about earlier was about shading panels in series and parallel. You do want to put panels in series on the same plane or the same side of the roof. This is a pretty flat roof, but some of them have quite of a crown to them. You want panels in series on the same side, and then you'd have panels maybe in parallel across. But even though this panel might be shaded, and let's say there's another panel up here, that one will still make its full production. This one will just get shaded a little bit, and it won't make that much of a difference. So one thing, Barry, I noticed on your roof is you actually have a lot of space right here. So you have the option of possibly doing a residential panel. These start at about 40 inches wide, and so that would be right here by my thumb. And they're about 66, maybe 79 inches long. Right here is about 66 inches. So you could fit a residential size panel here and maybe over there. It's just an option. One thing though I want to caution people though is you don't want to generally mix different size panels on the same controller. So it might be you have some RV size panels up there on one controller, and you have a residential size or two on another controller. So one reason you may consider using residential size panels is they generally can be bought cheaper than the RV size panels, and you get a larger panel in the footprint, and so for some people that might make a nice difference for them. It just depends on your exact layout if it's going to work for you.
All right, so Dan, let's talk about this. Well, you've got an old solar panel here that the manufacturer installed. So tell me about it. What would you do here? Well,
this looks to be about a 100-watt panel, and it's obviously existing to your system. Most likely what I would tell my customer is that this panel is not really worth keeping. You have a lot of valuable space here you could be using for other panels. The nice thing is you do already have an entry point that you could pull up and see where it goes into the RV. But in most cases, keeping an existing 100-watt panel, if you're going to be doing 210 watts or even larger, is not worth the hassle of keeping this one panel.
All right, so you mentioned combiner box earlier. Is this a good spot to put the combiner box since there's already a hole in the roof?
Most definitely. So there's two wires running in here. You probably have a pretty small hole here. So if we pulled up the die core and removed that plate, we'd found an entry point into the RV. Most likely this is going into a wall, and you could use these existing wires to pull a new wire up, and at that point you could put a combiner box here, and if you had panels all up and down your roof, you'd be running them all back to this point, and this is pretty close to your batteries on your RV that's at the rear of your RV. It just depends on the RV layout where the best place to put the combiner box is.
All right, so earlier you mentioned the roof fan. Is this where you were talking about learning more about how your roof is constructed?
Definitely. You have a cover over your fan. And one thing I want to make clear is I was actually talking about inside your RV, you have a plastic shroud around the inside, maybe 4 screws holding it. You can pull it down very easy, and you should be able to see what your roof is made of. You don't have to do anything with the top or pull off any die-core up here. You're just looking from the inside, but this is a great place inside the RV. Fantastic fan, max fan, or whatever type of fan it is. They're all built very similar. It's usually a 12 by 12 hole that you're pulling down a shroud for to look inside. So Barry, we are on the top of my fifth wheel now. First thing you'll notice is my panels are pretty dirty, and this is just something that happens when you're out in the desert. We had a good windstorm yesterday. They definitely need to be cleaned. But I actually still make plenty of solar right now. Even though they're dirty, I'm not having any issues getting full every day. This is a little bit different install. This is 9 335 watt panels that go over everything on my roof. One reason I did is my fifth wheel has lots of angles to the roof, and I wanted my panels flat. I didn't want to have to worry about which way I was facing, and so I did the first 6. Each of the panels have their own custom legs built using angle iron and flat iron pieces and different heights to accommodate the changing roof. I did leave space so I can actually walk my entire roof without needing a ladder. And then later on I added the additional 3 panels that are back here by us. I did things a little bit differently. These are sitting on an angle iron rail and they're bolted to the rail. My AC is under here, so this gives me a much easier option to just take off a few panels if I need to service my AC. But it does help me shade my roof. I have noticed a big difference in keeping the roof much cooler in the summertime. And so this is another option for someone that wants to build a really big system, is you get above everything. Maybe on some fifth wheels you can't get over the AC, but you can get over a lot of other things. And this is where residential size panels come in handy. So Barry, this is my combiner box. I have 2 strings of panels. I have these 3 are in series, these 3 are in series. That's called a 3 series 2 parallel, and they come into this combiner box. Not sure exactly which wires, but 2 sets of the wires would come in here. The 3 panels back by you are another set in series, and they also come in here. And so yeah, I've got 2 on one side, 2 over here, and 2 back there, and then I have bus bars in here that are combining them and dropping down to 2 different controllers. So I have 2 sets of bus bars for each controller. And then I have, the wires are actually not dropping into my roof here. They're going under this one panel and dropping down into a cabinet. So Barry, we're at the front of my fifth wheel. As I said, I'm running a pretty large system. You saw the panels on the roof. I'm running dual multi-plus 24 volt, 3000 volt amp inverters in parallel. So one is the master, the other is a slave. And because I'm running 24 volt, I need a step down converter, and that's what this Orion is. It steps down to 24 volt to 12 volt to run my water pump and other stuff. I actually built this false wall here. This was all open to my basement. My batteries sit behind the wall, and all my charge controllers sit behind there. So this gave me extra room to not take up my whole basement. Have the inverters here, batteries back there. So I have 2 disconnects, one for each inverter here. There's also a disconnect up here for the 12 volt. And these are just, disconnects right here. I also have more disconnects at my batteries. Again, I can shut my whole system down at different points depending on what kind of work I'm doing. I have disconnects for the solar, disconnects for the batteries, disconnects for the inverters, and disconnects for the 12 volt.